The day had started like any other in the royal palace, with sunlight streaming through tall windows and the quiet hum of staff moving about. Prince Louis was wandering the long corridors, curious as always, peeking into rooms and watching people go about their work. He had always been a child full of energy and wonder, always asking questions and exploring. Today, however, there was a special event planned, and the air in the palace felt different. There was excitement mixed with a little nervousness that even the youngest members of the household could feel. The occasion was a musical event, where a world-famous pianist had been invited to perform. This pianist had traveled the world, playing in the grandest halls and receiving countless accolades. People in the palace whispered about his talent, and even those who were not musicians felt a sense of awe. Prince Louis, being naturally curious and drawn to music, had been eager to attend, but he didn't fully understand why everyone made such a big deal about this particular musician. As the child wandered closer to the grand hall where the event was taking place, he could hear soft music drifting through the doors. It was the kind of music that made the air feel alive, notes dancing and floating around the space. He paused at the doorway, his eyes wide, taking in the grandeur of the hall. It was filled with elegantly dressed people, chandeliers sparkling overhead, and the gentle murmur of conversations. At the center of the attention sat the pianist, tall and calm, his fingers moving across the keys with effortless grace. Prince Louis watched quietly, fascinated by the way the man seemed to become one with the piano, as if the instrument were an extension of himself. The pianist noticed the small observer at the edge of the room. With a slight smile, he paused his playing and waved at the boy. Louis's eyes lit up, and he stepped a little closer, unsure if he should actually approach. The pianist beckoned him over, leaning forward slightly. The audience, noticing the interaction, began to watch with curiosity. Some smiled at the scene, charmed by the idea of a young prince being invited into the spotlight. When Louis reached the piano, the pianist looked at him with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Would you like to try playing something?" he asked gently. His tone was playful, and though the words seemed simple, there was an underlying challenge hidden within them. Prince Louis hesitated, his small hands resting at his sides. He had seen pianists perform on stage before, and the idea of playing in front of everyone was both exciting and terrifying. He glanced at the audience, feeling a flutter of nervousness, but also a spark of curiosity. What would happen if he actually tried? Seeing the hesitation, the pianist leaned closer and whispered, almost conspiratorially, "It's very simple. Just press the keys and let the music come out." His words were kind but also carried a hint of playful mischief. Louis's eyebrows furrowed in thought. He had never performed in front of so many people, and the thought of making a mistake was scary. But there was something in the pianist's eyes, a kind of gentle encouragement that made him feel braver. After a moment of silence, he nodded slowly, deciding to accept the challenge. The pianist stepped back slightly, giving the young prince room. "Just have fun," he said with a warm smile. Louis climbed onto the piano bench, his legs swinging slightly as he adjusted his position. The audience leaned in, curious to see what would happen next. The air was thick with anticipation, and every eye seemed to be on him. The boy took a deep breath and placed his hands on the keys. They felt smooth and cold beneath his fingers, and the sound they made when pressed was louder than he expected. He hesitated, pressing one key, then another. The note that came out was soft and slightly off from the melody he imagined, but it was music nonetheless. A few people in the audience chuckled softly, not out of mockery, but at the innocence of the moment. Louis looked up at the pianist, who nodded encouragingly. The boy's confidence grew slightly, and he pressed a few more keys, experimenting with the sounds. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't follow any formal pattern, but it was music. The notes stumbled over each other at times, but there was a charm to the rawness of the attempt. He was making something beautiful out of nothing, guided by his own curiosity and instinct. The pianist watched closely, both amused and intrigued. He had planned the situation as a playful prank, thinking it would make the young prince fumble and perhaps create a funny scene for the audience. But he had not expected this. The boy's focus, determination, and willingness to explore the piano so fearlessly. There was a spark of something special, something unexpected. The prank, in the pianist's mind, was already taking a turn in a direction he had not predicted. Louis continued, pressing keys and trying different combinations, sometimes hitting discordant notes and other times finding ones that sounded surprisingly pleasant together. The audience began to smile more openly now, charmed by the authenticity and courage of the child. There was laughter, yes, but it was gentle and kind, the laughter that comes from delight rather than ridicule. Everyone could see that this was not just a child struggling, but a young boy experiencing the joy of creation for the first time in front of others. The pianist, realizing that the prank had become something much more interesting, leaned back and allowed Louis more freedom. He occasionally guided him subtly, offering small gestures of direction, but mostly letting the boy explore on his own. Each note that sounded right seemed to bring a small triumph to the young prince's face. His eyes sparkled with excitement, and he smiled nervously at the audience, who were now fully engaged in his little performance. The atmosphere had shifted from one of expectation to one of shared joy and curiosity. As Louis played, he began to notice the reactions of those around him. The smiles, the encouraging nods, the gentle applause after a series of notes. It gave him confidence, even though he knew he was not playing like the pianist. But this did not matter. What mattered was the feeling of creating something, the thrill of being brave, and the shared laughter and smiles that made the hall feel warm and alive. It was an experience that went beyond music. It was about courage, curiosity, and the joy of trying something new. For a moment, the prank faded entirely from the pianist's mind. He had intended to make the prince stumble, to create a funny scene, but what he was witnessing now was something far more meaningful. There was a lesson here about the unexpected talent and resilience that children can have, about how a playful challenge can reveal hidden strengths, and about how encouragement and kindness can transform nervousness into confidence. The pianist felt a mix of admiration and surprise, realizing that this simple act had turned into a memorable moment for everyone in the room. Louis, unaware of the deeper thoughts of the pianist, continued to press keys, feeling the music and enjoying the sound. He was learning with every note, discovering how even mistakes could be part of the beauty. The audience, now fully engaged, watched as the young prince navigated the piano with a mix of innocence and curiosity. Each note was a small story, each pause a breath of anticipation. The hall seemed to hold its breath with him, sharing in the discovery and joy. Finally, after several minutes that felt both long and short, Louis stopped, breathing heavily but smiling widely. The pianist leaned forward, applauding warmly and genuinely. The audience erupted into applause as well, and Louis's face lit up with pride and relief. He had faced the challenge, embraced the experience, and found joy in the process. The prank had transformed into a celebration of courage, curiosity, and the simple joy of trying something new. The pianist approached the young prince and gently patted him on the shoulder. "You did wonderfully," he said, his voice full of warmth and genuine admiration. Louis beamed, feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never experienced before. The audience continued to clap, some laughing softly at the playful beginning, but all sharing in the genuine delight of the performance. As the crowd slowly began to settle, whispers of admiration and smiles filled the room. Louis had discovered something important that day: the courage to try, the joy of creating, and the magic that comes from stepping into the unknown. The prank had served as a catalyst, but what emerged was far more meaningful. It was a memory that would stay with him, a story he would remember not just for the music, but for the courage, the laughter, and the shared joy of a moment that began as a simple challenge. The event concluded with Louis being celebrated quietly for his bravery and playfulness. He had turned a prank into something remarkable, surprising everyone, including the famous pianist. The young prince's natural curiosity and fearless spirit had shone through, creating a memory that would be told and retold. A story of courage, innocence, and unexpected talent. The day ended with smiles, applause, and a sense of wonder that lingered long after the last note had faded away, leaving everyone in the hall with the warmth of witnessing something truly special. After the first tentative notes had sounded and the applause had filled the hall, Prince Louis felt a strange mix of relief and excitement. His heart was still beating fast, but there was a spark inside him that he had not felt before. He had faced the eyes of many people, the weight of expectation, and he had done something brave. The pianist, standing nearby, watched with interest as the young prince's expression shifted from nervousness to curiosity. There was something in the way Louis looked at the piano, a sense of challenge mixed with fascination, that made the pianist smile quietly to himself. The audience had settled down, murmuring among themselves about the surprising display. Some were still chuckling softly at the innocence of it, while others whispered about the courage it took for a child to perform in front of so many people. But Louis was not thinking about their reactions. His mind was alive with possibilities. He wanted to try more, to explore the piano further, to see what sounds he could create. What had started as a prank now felt like an adventure, a journey into the unknown world of music. The pianist leaned closer and spoke softly, careful not to startle him. "Would you like to play something a little more your own way?" His eyes twinkled with amusement, knowing that the challenge was shifting from a simple prank into something more creative. Louis thought for a moment, then nodded eagerly. He understood that this was his chance to take control, to turn the playful challenge into a moment of discovery. Climbing back onto the bench, he felt the smooth surface of the piano keys beneath his fingers. He had learned from his first few attempts that pressing the keys in a certain order could create a melody, but he didn't want to just copy what he had heard before. He wanted to experiment, to find his own sound. With a deep breath, he began pressing different keys in sequences that felt right to him. Some notes clashed, some blended, and some surprisingly sounded beautiful together. Each sound brought a small smile to his face, a thrill of joy that grew with every attempt. The pianist watched closely, genuinely fascinated. He had expected the boy to fumble, to create a few awkward notes and end the performance there. Instead, Louis was improvising, exploring the instrument with curiosity and courage. The young prince's fingers moved with a mix of hesitation and boldness, trying things he had never attempted before. There was something magical about watching him create music so freely, so unselfconsciously. The pianist realized that the prank had led to something far more meaningful, a young mind discovering joy in creativity. The audience had noticed the shift as well. The initial amusement turned into genuine admiration as they watched Louis experiment. Some smiled warmly, seeing a child learning in real time, unafraid to make mistakes. Others whispered to one another, amazed at his courage. The hall was filled not with tension or judgment, but with warmth and encouragement. It was as if everyone present had agreed to support the prince in his little journey, sharing in the joy of discovery. Louis's small hands moved more confidently now. He was beginning to recognize patterns, the way certain notes could follow each other to create harmony. He tried different combinations, sometimes pressing several keys quickly, sometimes letting a single note linger. Every mistake was a lesson, and every success was a small triumph. He was learning that music was not about perfection but about expression. The freedom to explore, to take risks, and to enjoy the process became the heart of his performance. The pianist, now fully invested in the moment, occasionally offered subtle guidance. A slight nod, a gentle gesture of a hand, or a quiet smile encouraged Louis to continue exploring. The young prince responded instinctively, adjusting his fingers and experimenting further. The prank, once meant to create a funny scene, had transformed into a genuine teaching moment, filled with curiosity and respect. The pianist marveled at the natural talent and intuition that Louis displayed, realizing that even the smallest encouragement could lead to remarkable growth. Minutes passed, though it felt like an eternity and a heartbeat all at once. Louis became more relaxed, more immersed in the sounds he was creating. He was no longer thinking about the audience or the prank. He was thinking only about the piano, the notes, and the joy of discovery. Each chord he played felt like a conversation, each melody a story he was telling through sound. The audience, too, was captivated, sensing the transformation taking place before them. What began as a playful challenge had become an unexpected performance, full of charm and authenticity. The pianist could not help but smile broadly now. He had been present at countless performances, from grand stages to intimate recitals, but there was something uniquely captivating about this. Lewis's honesty, his willingness to experiment, and his courage to play in front of others created a moment that was raw, real, and memorable. It was not just the music that was enchanting, but the spirit behind it. There was an innocence and bravery that could not be taught, only experienced. Lewis continued to explore, his confidence growing with each note. The audience's encouragement became a gentle rhythm, a backdrop to his improvisation. Applause followed small successes, and laughter accompanied minor mistakes, creating an atmosphere that was playful and warm. The young prince began to notice this, and a bright smile spread across his face. He realized that it was okay to make mistakes, that trying and experimenting were part of the journey. Each key he pressed was a discovery, each melody a small adventure. The pianist, feeling a mixture of pride and amusement, decided to step back and watch the boy take the lead entirely. Lewis had transformed the prank into a personal performance, showing curiosity, creativity, and courage. He was learning, growing, and expressing himself in ways that were natural and inspiring. The hall was alive with energy, filled with people witnessing the unfolding of something genuinely special. The moment was no longer about a prank but about the magic of exploration and the joy of learning. As Lewis played, he began to notice the subtle details of the piano. The way the keys felt under his fingers, the resonance of different notes, the way certain combinations created harmony. He experimented with volume, pressing some keys gently and others more forcefully, discovering the expressive possibilities of the instrument. Each sound was a surprise, each melody a new story. The young prince was learning to listen, to feel, and to respond, developing a connection with the piano that went beyond the simple act of playing. The audience watched in awe as the young prince continued his exploration. Whispers of admiration spread, and smiles filled the room. What had begun as a prank had become an unforgettable moment of courage, creativity, and innocence. Lewis was not only performing music but also expressing his personality, his curiosity, and his playful spirit. The pianist, realizing the impact of the moment, felt a deep sense of respect and amazement. He had intended a light-hearted joke, but what he witnessed was the emergence of talent, confidence, and joy. Time seemed to stretch, each moment filled with discovery and expression. Lewis's fingers danced across the keys with growing confidence, his heart lifted by the joy of creating something uniquely his own. The audience became part of the experience, their gentle encouragement blending with the music. The hall seemed to hum with warmth, filled with shared wonder and delight. The prank had become a lesson in courage, exploration, and the beauty of trying without fear. Finally, after what felt like both a brief instant and an eternity, Lewis paused, breathing deeply and smiling. The pianist approached, clapping gently and offering words of praise. The audience erupted into applause, not only for the music but for the spirit of the young prince who had embraced the challenge with courage and joy. Lewis beamed, feeling a sense of accomplishment and pride that he had never experienced before. He had faced a challenge, embraced it fully, and discovered the joy of exploration and creativity. The pianist knelt slightly to speak to Lewis directly, his voice full of warmth and admiration. "You have a special way with the piano. Remember, it's not about playing perfectly, but about enjoying every moment and discovering your own sound." Lewis listened carefully, absorbing the words, feeling encouraged and inspired. He realized that this experience was more than just a performance. It was a lesson in bravery, curiosity, and the joy of creation. As the event continued, the young prince's confidence grew. He knew that mistakes were part of learning, that exploration was part of growing, and that curiosity could lead to unexpected discoveries. The audience, inspired by his courage and creativity, continued to watch with smiles and applause, sharing in the joy of the moment. The prank, initially intended as a playful challenge, had transformed into a celebration of talent, curiosity, and the power of encouragement. When the performance finally ended, Lewis stepped away from the piano, feeling proud and exhilarated. The pianist patted him on the shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. The audience continued to murmur and clap, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. Lewis had turned a simple prank into an extraordinary experience, discovering not only the magic of music, but also the power of courage, curiosity, and joy. The young prince's adventure with the piano would stay in his memory forever. What had started as a playful challenge became a transformative experience, filled with learning, laughter, and discovery. The day had shown him that trying new things, facing fears, and embracing creativity could lead to moments of unexpected joy and pride. As he left the hall, he knew that he had discovered something precious. The courage to explore, the joy of creating, and the delight of sharing his journey with others. After the applause had settled, the young prince felt a new sense of confidence growing within him. The initial nerves that had made his fingers shake were replaced by excitement and curiosity. He looked at the piano with fresh eyes, seeing it no longer as a daunting instrument but as a tool for exploration and expression. The hall felt alive with energy, the audience watching in quiet anticipation, waiting to see what he would do next. It was a moment that felt both private and public, personal and shared. The pianist, standing nearby with a gentle smile, could see the transformation clearly. He had expected hesitation and perhaps a few clumsy notes, but what he witnessed now was unexpected. The prince was improvising with confidence, experimenting with the keys, letting intuition guide his hands. The pianist realized that the prank, meant to challenge the boy, had unexpectedly revealed his natural creativity and curiosity. Each note the prince played carried a sense of wonder, a tiny spark of imagination that captivated everyone present. Lewis began to notice patterns and rhythms on his own, combining notes in ways that felt pleasing to him. He was no longer worried about mistakes or hitting the wrong keys. Every sound, whether harmonious or jarring, became part of his exploration. The pianist stepped back, allowing him space to experiment freely. Sometimes he would glance at the audience and see smiles and gentle encouragement, which only fueled his confidence. He began to feel that music was not just about performing perfectly but about expressing himself and enjoying the process. As the minutes passed, the young prince's improvisation became more complex. He pressed keys with varying speed and intensity, discovering how different combinations could create melodies, rhythms, and even a sense of tension and release. The hall was filled with a mixture of sounds, some discordant, some surprisingly beautiful. It was raw, unpolished music, but it had a charm that touched everyone listening. The audience leaned in, caught up in the authenticity and courage of a child daring to create something completely new. The pianist, observing quietly, could not help but be impressed. He had played for countless audiences and witnessed many talented musicians, but there was something uniquely special about what he was seeing now. The prince's willingness to take risks, to try things without fear of failure, was inspiring. He realized that this moment was not about a prank anymore. It had become a lesson in courage, creativity, and self-expression. He could see the joy radiating from the boy, and it reminded him of why music could be so powerful and transformative. Lewis continued to explore, letting his hands move more freely over the keys. He discovered that pressing multiple keys simultaneously could create a fuller sound, while single notes could carry delicate emotion. He experimented with tempo, sometimes playing fast sequences and other times slowing down to let a single note linger. The audience responded intuitively, offering quiet applause, smiles, and gentle laughter. Each reaction encouraged him to continue, and he felt a sense of connection with those watching. He realized that sharing his exploration with others made it even more meaningful. The pianist decided to engage him with a subtle challenge. He gestured toward a set of higher-pitched keys, suggesting without words that Lewis try them. The prince's eyes lit up, and he immediately began experimenting with the new sounds. The higher notes created a contrast to the lower ones he had been playing, adding a dynamic layer to his improvisation. He was beginning to understand how different sounds could evoke different feelings and moods, even without formal training. It was a small discovery, but it filled him with pride and excitement. As he played, He noticed that some sequences of notes naturally sounded like a melody. Without realizing it, he began to create a pattern that was not just random experimentation but a coherent piece of music. He pressed the keys with more confidence, following the flow of the sound rather than overthinking each note. The audience watched with admiration, sensing the evolution from hesitant experimentation to intentional creation. They were witnessing the emergence of a young talent discovering the joy of music in its purest form. The pianist stepped forward briefly, offering a nod of encouragement and a gentle smile. Louis felt a surge of pride at the acknowledgement. He was learning not just from his own experimentation but from the subtle guidance of someone who understood music deeply. He realized that mistakes were part of learning, that each wrong note could lead to something unexpected and beautiful. The fear of failure had vanished, replaced by curiosity and a sense of adventure. Music had become a playground, and he was exploring every corner. The young prince began to notice the response of the audience in more detail. He saw the way some people leaned forward, intrigued by the patterns he was creating. Others smiled, enjoying the playful energy of his improvisation. The hall seemed to hum with anticipation and delight. Louis realized that his music could affect others, that sharing his exploration could create a shared experience of joy. It was a revelation that added another layer of excitement to the performance. As he continued, he started experimenting with dynamics, playing some notes softly and others with more force. He discovered that this variation could create tension and release, moments of surprise and delight. The audience reacted intuitively, their attention caught by the shifts in sound. Louis felt a thrill at the realization that he could communicate through music, that even without words, he could tell a story and evoke emotions. The piano had become a bridge between his inner world and those watching, a tool for connection and expression. The pianist, quietly observing, began to reflect on the journey that had brought them here. What had started as a playful prank had evolved into a shared experience of discovery, courage, and creativity. He was amazed at the young prince's natural intuition, his ability to listen, respond, and create. The boy's fearlessness and curiosity had turned the challenge into something extraordinary, something memorable for everyone present. The prank had backfired in the most wonderful way, revealing not only talent but a spirit that was willing to explore and take risks. Louis, caught up in the music, barely noticed the passing of time. He was fully immersed in the experience, discovering new sounds, patterns, and rhythms. Each note was a revelation, each combination a small adventure. He felt a sense of freedom and joy that he had never known before, and it fueled his desire to continue exploring. The hall seemed to fade away, leaving only him, the piano, and the music. Yet, he could feel the presence of the audience, their support and encouragement guiding him gently as he played. The audience, captivated by the unfolding performance, responded with quiet applause and soft murmurs of admiration. They could see the evolution of a young prince transforming from nervousness to confidence, from hesitation to bold experimentation. The moment was no longer a prank. It had become a celebration of courage, creativity, and the joy of exploration. People felt a sense of connection, not just to the music, but to the spirit of the boy playing with curiosity and fearlessness. As the performance continued, Louis discovered that combining notes in unexpected ways could produce surprising and delightful results. He began to experiment with sequences that flowed naturally, guided by intuition rather than conscious thought. He felt the thrill of creating something new, something that was entirely his own. The pianist observed in quiet admiration, realizing that the boy was learning to communicate through music, expressing himself in a way that words could not capture. The prank had become a powerful lesson in creativity and self-expression. Louis's confidence grew steadily. He noticed the audience reacting to his music, responding with smiles, applause, and gentle laughter. Their reactions encouraged him to take more risks, to explore further, and to trust his instincts. He realized that making mistakes was not something to fear, but a natural part of learning and creating. Each wrong note could lead to something unexpected, each experiment a chance to discover something new. Music had become a journey, and he was navigating it with courage and joy. The pianist decided to offer a small playful challenge, suggesting that Louis try a series of faster notes. The young prince accepted eagerly, his fingers moving quickly across the keys. He felt the exhilaration of speed and rhythm, discovering the thrill of movement and timing. The audience responded with surprise and delight, caught up in the energy and creativity of the moment. Louis had transformed the prank into a true performance, full of exploration, courage, and discovery. As he slowed down, catching his breath, Louis reflected on the experience. He realized that he had learned so much in a short time, not just about music but about himself. He had faced fear, embraced creativity, and discovered the joy of exploration. The hall was filled with warmth and admiration, and he felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. The prank had led to an extraordinary moment, one that would be remembered by everyone present for years to come. The pianist approached, clapping gently and offering words of praise. Louis listened, feeling encouraged and inspired. The young prince had turned a playful challenge into a meaningful and memorable experience, discovering talent, courage, and the joy of self-expression. The audience continued to respond warmly, sharing in the delight of the unfolding moment. What had begun as a simple prank had blossomed into an unforgettable story of discovery, creativity, and human connection. As the performance drew to a close, Louis stepped back from the piano, smiling broadly. The audience erupted into applause, their admiration heartfelt and genuine. The pianist, still smiling, offered a final nod of encouragement. The young prince had taken a playful challenge and turned it into something remarkable, demonstrating courage, creativity, and the joy of exploration. The experience would remain with him forever, a memory of discovery, growth, and the magic of music. After the young prince had finished his improvisation, a hush fell over the hall for a brief moment. Everyone was caught in the realization that what they had just witnessed was more than a playful attempt or a simple prank. It had become a genuine performance, filled with courage, creativity, and the innocence of a child discovering something new. The pianist, standing close by, watched with amazement. He had intended the challenge as a light-hearted joke, but it had turned into a moment of true inspiration. The boy had exceeded all expectations, turning hesitation into confidence, and a prank into an authentic display of talent. The audience erupted into applause, their cheers echoing throughout the hall. Some clapped enthusiastically, others smiled warmly, and many whispered to each other about the courage and creativity they had just seen. It was clear that the young prince had made a lasting impression. He stepped back from the piano, breathing heavily but with a proud and radiant smile on his face. The joy of discovery still shone in his eyes, and he realized that he had accomplished something he never thought possible. The pianist approached the boy, his eyes reflecting both amusement and admiration. "You were amazing," he said softly, speaking directly to him. The words carried warmth and genuine respect. The young prince's chest swelled with pride. He felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond applause or praise. He had faced a challenge, embraced it, and found joy in creating something unique. The experience had taught him not only about music but about courage, experimentation, and self-expression. As the audience continued to react, the pianist made a small, playful gesture. He leaned closer and whispered, "I think the prank has completely backfired." The boy giggled, understanding the humor in the situation. What was meant to be a simple joke had turned into a celebration of his bravery and curiosity. He realized that sometimes unexpected outcomes could be even better than what was planned. The prank had revealed his talent, strengthened his confidence, and left everyone, including the pianist, in awe. The young prince began to receive more attention from those around him. Members of the audience approached, offering words of encouragement and admiration. They praised his creativity, his fearlessness, and his ability to embrace the challenge. Each compliment added to his sense of pride and accomplishment. He felt seen and valued, not just as a young member of the royal family, but as an individual capable of expression, courage, and creativity. The experience had shifted from a playful challenge to a meaningful moment of recognition. The pianist took a step back, observing the boy's reactions to the praise. He realized that the young prince had not only learned about music but had also discovered the power of self-expression and the importance of embracing challenges. The applause and admiration from the audience reinforced the lesson. Courage and curiosity could lead to unexpected and wonderful results. The prank, in its original form, had transformed into an opportunity for growth and learning. It had revealed the boy's ability to rise to a challenge, experiment fearlessly, and create something memorable. The young prince, feeling more confident, began to reflect on the experience. He remembered his initial hesitation, the nerves that had made his fingers tremble, and the fear of making mistakes. He realized that all of those feelings had been natural and necessary. They had been a part of the process, guiding him toward discovery and growth. By facing the challenge head-on, he had learned that mistakes were not failures but opportunities to explore and create. Each note he had played, whether correct or discordant, had contributed to the unique experience. As the audience continued to react positively, the pianist spoke again, this time addressing everyone. What we have seen here is a reminder that courage, curiosity, and creativity can turn even a playful challenge into something extraordinary. His words resonated throughout the hall, and people nodded in agreement. They recognized the lesson in the young prince's performance, that embracing challenges, experimenting, and expressing oneself could lead to moments of inspiration and connection. The prank had become a teaching moment, for both the boy and everyone watching. The young prince, encouraged by the attention and praise, decided to try one more small improvisation. He approached the piano once again, this time with a sense of calm and confidence. He pressed the keys gently, letting the notes flow naturally without overthinking. The sounds he created were softer and more deliberate, a reflection of his growing understanding and comfort with the instrument. The audience listened attentively, captivated by the combination of innocence, bravery, and creativity. Each note told a story. Each melody revealed a piece of the boy's personality and imagination. The pianist watched closely, fascinated by the transformation. He realized that the young prince had learned quickly, not just about music but about the process of discovery itself. He had taken a playful challenge, faced his fears, and turned it into an authentic experience of growth and expression. The audience was witnessing the unfolding of a remarkable moment, one that was both entertaining and inspiring. The prank had sparked curiosity, and that curiosity had led to courage, creativity, and a sense of accomplishment. As Louis played, he began to experiment with dynamics, pressing some keys gently and others more forcefully. He discovered that the variations in sound could create emotions and moods, adding depth to his performance. The audience responded intuitively, their reactions encouraging him to continue exploring. He felt a sense of connection, not just with the music, but with the people around him. They were part of the experience, sharing in the joy of discovery and the delight of creativity. The prank had become a bridge between him and the audience, a shared journey of exploration and expression. The pianist, impressed and amused, decided to step back and allow the young prince to take complete control. He observed quietly, letting the boy navigate the piano on his own. Louis's fingers moved with growing confidence, each note a testament to his courage and curiosity. He experimented with rhythms, patterns, and melodies, discovering the expressive power of the instrument. The audience remained captivated, sensing the authenticity and bravery in every note. What had begun as a prank had become a powerful lesson in self-expression and creativity. The young prince, feeling the encouragement and warmth from the audience, began to improvise more boldly. He pressed multiple keys simultaneously, creating a fuller sound. He experimented with tempo, alternating between fast sequences and slow, lingering notes. The variations added complexity and emotion to his performance. The audience responded with gentle applause and smiles, appreciating not only the music but the courage and curiosity behind it. Louis realized that he could express himself through sound, that music was a language that connected him to others. As he continued, the pianist offered subtle guidance, using gestures and facial expressions to encourage exploration without directing it. Lewis responded instinctively, adjusting his approach and experimenting further. He discovered new sounds and patterns, learning from both successes and mistakes. The audience watched with admiration, recognizing the transformation from a nervous child to a confident, creative performer. The prank had become a lesson in resilience, curiosity, and the joy of discovery. Finally, after a series of experiments and improvisations, Lewis paused. He took a deep breath, feeling a sense of accomplishment and pride. The pianist approached, clapping gently and smiling warmly. "You have turned a simple challenge into something remarkable," he said. The young prince beamed, feeling the weight of the words and the sincerity behind them. The audience erupted into applause once again, celebrating not just the music but the courage, creativity, and joy that had made the performance unforgettable. The experience left a lasting impression on everyone present. The young prince had discovered the power of curiosity, the joy of experimentation, and the importance of courage in the face of challenges. The prank had transformed into a memorable lesson in self-expression and human connection. The pianist reflected on the journey, realizing that sometimes playful challenges could lead to the most meaningful and inspiring experiences. Lewis had embraced the moment fully, turning hesitation into confidence and fear into creativity. As the audience slowly began to disperse, people continued to talk about the young prince's performance. They admired his bravery, his curiosity, and his ability to create something beautiful from a playful challenge. Lewis, feeling proud and inspired, realized that he had learned more than just how to play the piano. He had learned about courage, creativity, and the joy of exploring the unknown. The prank had sparked a journey of discovery, and he had embraced it fully, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. After the applause had slowly died down and the hall had returned to its usual quiet hum, Prince Louis felt a mix of exhilaration and wonder. The experience of playing the piano in front of so many people had been unlike anything he had felt before. It had started as a playful challenge, a prank meant to catch him off guard, but it had transformed into a moment of discovery, courage, and joy. He walked slowly away from the piano, his small hands still tingling with the memory of each note he had played. The pianist followed him, smiling warmly, proud of the boy's growth and bravery. Louis's mind was buzzing with thoughts. He replayed the sounds he had created, noticing the sequences that had surprised him and the moments when the music had flowed naturally. He realized that he had learned something important, not just about the piano but about himself. He had faced fear, embraced curiosity, and discovered the joy of trying something new. Every mistake had been a lesson, every sound a story, and every note a piece of expression. The young prince felt a sense of pride that went deeper than applause or recognition. It was a pride rooted in courage, creativity, and the joy of exploration. The pianist gently placed a hand on Louis's shoulder. "You have a natural sense of curiosity and expression," he said softly. "Remember that music is not just about notes, but about how you feel when you create it. Keep exploring, keep trying, and never be afraid to make mistakes." Louis nodded, absorbing the words. They felt true and encouraging, reinforcing the lesson he had just experienced. He realized that the prank had been more than a test. It had been an opportunity to discover something special about himself. Back in the audience, whispers of admiration and amazement continued. People discussed how brave and creative the young prince had been, praising his willingness to take risks and explore new sounds. Some marveled at the fact that a playful challenge could reveal such courage and talent. The story of his performance quickly became a topic of conversation, spreading from person to person. Everyone seemed to agree that what they had witnessed was remarkable, not because of perfection, but because of authenticity, bravery, and the joy of discovery. Louis returned to his quarters, still feeling the thrill of the day. He thought about how the piano had felt under his fingers, how the sounds had come alive in the room, and how the audience had reacted. Each memory brought a smile to his face. He realized that music was not just about performance or skill. It was about exploration, expression, and connection. He had learned that trying something new, even when it seemed scary, could lead to wonderful surprises. The prank had sparked a journey of growth, and he had embraced it fully. In the days that followed, the young prince found himself thinking often about the piano and the experience in the hall. He began to explore music more frequently, practicing on his own, experimenting with sounds, and discovering new ways to create melodies. Each session was filled with curiosity and joy, a continuation of the lessons he had learned during the prank. He realized that creativity and courage were not limited to special events. They could be part of everyday life. The experience had ignited a spark that would continue to grow. The pianist stayed in touch, offering gentle encouragement and advice. He shared small tips and playful challenges, guiding Louis without taking control. The young prince responded eagerly, experimenting with new techniques and expressing himself freely. The relationship between them became one of mentorship and friendship, built on trust, respect, and shared curiosity. Louis looked forward to their sessions, each one an opportunity to explore, learn, and create. Word of the young prince's performance spread beyond the palace. Members of the public, journalists, and music enthusiasts heard about the event and shared stories of the courageous and creative child, who had turned a playful prank into a remarkable musical experience. People admired his bravery, curiosity, and willingness to explore the unknown. The young prince's story became a symbol of courage and creativity, inspiring others to embrace challenges and find joy in discovery. At the palace, family and staff reflected on the event with pride. They spoke about how the young prince had approached the prank with courage, curiosity, and an open mind. They admired his ability to turn a playful challenge into a learning experience, demonstrating maturity beyond his years. The pianist's admiration reinforced the message. Courage, creativity, and curiosity could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The young prince had discovered the power of self-expression and the joy of exploration. Louis's confidence grew steadily. He began to recognize that challenges, even playful ones, could be opportunities for growth. He approached other activities with the same curiosity and courage, experimenting, learning, and embracing mistakes as part of the process. The experience with the piano had taught him a valuable lesson, that fear and hesitation could be transformed into discovery and joy. He carried this understanding with him into every part of his life, feeling braver and more confident than before. The young prince also learned the importance of sharing experiences with others. He realized that creativity and courage could inspire those around him. The applause, smiles, and encouragement from the audience had shown him that authentic expression could create connection. He understood that even small acts of bravery or curiosity could have a meaningful impact. The prank had not only revealed his talent, but had also demonstrated the power of human connection through shared experience. As time passed, the piano became a place of exploration, reflection, and joy for Louis. He spent hours experimenting with melodies, discovering new sounds, and expressing his emotions through music. Each session was a continuation of the lessons learned during the prank. Courage, curiosity, and the joy of creativity. He realized that the experience had shaped him, giving him confidence, resilience, and a sense of wonder. The prank had sparked a journey of personal growth, one that would continue to influence him throughout his life. The pianist continued to mentor him, offering guidance, encouragement, and playful challenges. Their relationship grew stronger, built on mutual respect and shared curiosity. Louis learned to appreciate not only the technical aspects of music but also the emotional and expressive dimensions. He discovered that music could be a way to communicate, to connect with others, and to explore his own feelings. The experience had opened a new world, full of possibilities, discovery, and joy. The story of the young prince's prank and performance became a cherished memory within the palace. It was told and retold, a story of courage, curiosity, and creativity. Family members and staff spoke of it with pride, highlighting the lessons learned and the joy experienced. The young prince, reflecting on the event, realized that the prank had been a gift in disguise, a playful challenge that revealed his abilities, strengthened his confidence, and sparked a lifelong love of music. It had been a turning point, a moment of growth and discovery that would shape his future. Lewis understood that the value of the experience went beyond music. He had learned about courage, the importance of curiosity, and the power of embracing challenges. He had discovered that mistakes were not failures but opportunities to learn and grow. He realized that every act of exploration, every attempt to create something new, was a step toward understanding and self-expression. The prank had transformed into a lasting lesson, one that would guide him in all aspects of life. In the years that followed, the young prince continued to explore music, creativity, and self-expression. He approached challenges with curiosity, courage, and an open mind. The lessons learned from the prank and the piano experience stayed with him, influencing his decisions, actions, and interactions. He discovered that bravery, curiosity, and creativity could lead to remarkable outcomes, not only for himself but for those around him. The prank had revealed his potential, inspired his growth, and left a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. The pianist, proud of the young prince's journey, continued to encourage and mentor him. They shared a bond of trust, respect, and shared curiosity. The experiences they had together became a source of inspiration, learning, and joy. Lewis grew not only as a musician but as a confident, creative, and courageous individual. The prank had sparked a chain of discovery, connection, and personal growth that would last a lifetime. Ultimately, the story of the prank and the performance became a tale of transformation. What began as a playful challenge had turned into a powerful experience of courage, curiosity, and self-expression. The young prince had discovered his own abilities, embraced creativity, and inspired others through his bravery and imagination. The lesson was clear. Challenges, even playful ones, could lead to growth, discovery, and joy. The prank had been more than a joke. It had been a spark that ignited a lifelong journey of exploration, confidence, and the beauty of creative expression. The young prince, reflecting on the journey, smiled at the memory. He remembered the initial nerves, the excitement, the joy of discovery, and the applause of the audience. He realized that the experience had shaped him in profound ways, teaching lessons about courage, curiosity, and the joy of trying something new. The prank had become a turning point, a moment of growth and inspiration that would remain with him forever. It was a story of transformation, a celebration of human spirit, and a reminder that even playful challenges could lead to extraordinary and lasting experiences.